Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. 12 and a half years strong. Got a great discussion coming your way on Opposition Territory this week. Philadelphia Eagles have a bye week, and as everybody knows here on our Opposition Territory pods, we always do a preview of the coming week and an opponent that the Eagles will be facing. But this week, with that bye week, we're going to be taking a look at the NFC overall. Various storylines. We're going to be looking at various teams. Who is a real contender? Who might be a fake contender, perhaps? We're going to dive into it with our good friend from acmepackingcompany.com, Evan Tex Western. Tex, buddy, thanks so much for joining us this week. It's always great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I was thinking at first you were a week early getting in touch with me for Packers Eagles, because I was thinking about it, like, wait a second, we play the Panthers this week. But no, happy to do it, and looking forward to getting into it with you.
I'm gonna have you on again before the Packers game too. If you're gonna be up for it,
Absolutely,
we're gonna have to do it. I love talking to you because, like, this NFC, I think, is absolute. This conference is it's phenomenal. If you're a football lover, to watch this conference and the various storylines that are going on. I mean, and I first really want to get into some of these teams that are leading their divisions within the NFC so far. We've seen some not so great football from some of these teams. We've seen some really good football from some of these teams here. So I'm wondering, who do you think is the team to beat in the NFC at this point? As we look at the division leaders, I mean, is it the Eagles? Is it your Packers? Perhaps the Bucks, maybe the Seahawks, maybe the Rams as well. Who is that dominant top team in the NFC at the moment that you're really honing in on?
Yeah, this is probably a cop-out, but I don't think there is one. The NFC feels like
that's not a cop-out, dude. I honestly thought I was thinking to myself when I had that question prepared for you. I was like, I wonder if that's which way you're going to go, because that's how I'm feeling too. Like I said, like, there's so many good football games that we have seen thus far, and there have been some real stinkers too, and like, you're right, I don't think there's a clear-cut answer here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good teams in this conference. I don't think there's a single truly great team in this conference, and honestly, I don't think there's a single truly great team across the entire NFL this season. Every team, I think, has flaws, and whether that's Green Bay having some issues in the secondary, whether that's the Lions are still having some question marks on defense and in the interior of their offensive line. You've got Tampa, who's got a bunch of injury issues all over the place, and how long could they kind of hold it together?
The Eagles' offensive line, I mean, leading up until this past week against the Giants, they were just floundering, and it was bizarre to see, because it has been a staple in Philadelphia. That Eagles' offensive line has been a staple, and yes, they may have righted the ship or however you want to say it, but like, yes, every single team, including the Eagles, in that dominant offensive line, not really doing all that great.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, to me in the NFC, I mean, I won't be surprised if whichever team wins the NFC North ends up in the number one seed yet again. Similar situation to like last year, where it was Minnesota and Detroit coming down to the wire. I definitely think that those two, Green Bay and Detroit, kind of could be neck and neck down the stretch, and there's a good chance that whichever one of those two teams wins the division ends up in the top seed. The one that I'm really kind of watching for is the Rams. I believe in them a little more than I believe in the Seahawks in terms of their completeness as a team. So I think they could be in the race. Certainly Philly, I mean, they have time to sort of get things righted and really figure it out. So, I mean, those are probably, to me, the four that I would really keep an eye on as having the best shot at taking the top seed and taking home field in the NFC. Would be Green Bay, Detroit, Philly, and the Rams in whatever order, right? I don't think there's an order, a pecking order established just yet. But, as we'll see, there'll be a big game coming up in 2 weeks that will kind of help stratify that just a little bit.
Absolutely. Just a little bit here. Well, I mean, getting more into some of these NFC storylines here, I really want to start with the Packers and really dive into the team that you cover over at acmepackingcompany.com. They're the only team in the NFC with only one loss. Certainly impressive for sure. But at times, in terms of what I have seen on the field from them, they just haven't appeared to be the absolute dominant team that so many of us thought that they would be before the season started. I mean, there's been a lot of, I would describe it as, quote, bend but don't break type of play on both the offense and the defense, and specifically the defense. I mean, but much of this is due to that Packers cornerback situation, that you did mention. They've been up and down for sure. While the Packers are definitely a top NFC team, like you just initially outlined, what's the level of confidence, Tex, that they can keep, in terms of being that top successful team, and why? What's that level of confidence?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of areas of concern for sure, right? You mentioned the cornerback position. That's definitely an area where Packers fans have been frustrated the last couple of weeks. They went out, they spent a bunch of money on Nate Hobbs in the offseason as a free agent acquisition. And when he's played, he's been bad. I mean, flat out bad. He got torched by the Cardinals and backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett 2 weeks ago. Then the coaching staff gave him a vote of confidence throughout all of this last week, and he played like 2 snaps against Pittsburgh on Sunday night, and Carrington Valentine got all the playing time, which, to be clear, as a Packers fan, I'm very in favor of. Valentine is a young, athletic, scrappy corner. I think Hobbs is probably still banged up, so that's part of it. But depth at that cornerback position, especially a concern, and it's really going to put pressure on the Packers' new look pass rush to get to quarterbacks and to not give guys time to throw. So that's thing number one. The other area that I do have concern about is the offensive line. They had a lot of injuries to start the year, and they really haven't started to gel until the last couple of weeks when guys have started to get healthy again, and they've had their starting 5 kind of set and ready to go. And with the Matt LaFleur offense, so much revolves around establishing the run and then building play action concepts off of that. So for a run-heavy team like that, not having that offensive line continuity is a big problem. Now they're finally getting to that point where they've got their guys in there and they're healthy, or they're healthier, and they're at least playing together. So that's a big step forward. But the other factor for the Packers was during those first, 5 or 6 weeks when they were kind of up and down and the offense was sputtering a little bit. It seemed like they didn't really want to just let Jordan Love cook. And we saw it in the second half on Sunday night in Pittsburgh, where it almost felt like LaFleur kind of said, all right, well, the offensive line isn't getting it done. The running game isn't really making any progress in Pittsburgh. So we've got to let Jordan go. And he came up with a phenomenal kind of, almost just because of the narrative with Rodgers and everything. I mean, it felt like kind of a career defining game for him. And, just he was pinpoint accurate when he had to be, and then he also got a lot of help from Yak, from his receivers. And so I think that was one where you finally saw him unshackled a little bit, and what he can do if they just really put the ball in his hands and tell him, go out there and drive the ship, and don't focus too much on just building off the run game. And it worked. And I think the couple times when they've looked at their best the last couple of years, or when they've done that, the Dallas game in the playoffs 2 years ago. Even the Dallas game this year on Sunday night a couple of weeks ago, the whole second half, Love was lighting it up and was playing great. So he certainly seems to play his best in prime time, and that's always kind of fun to see. But I do think you're seeing Love in particular take a big step forward at times this season, when they are letting him really open up the offense and open up the passing game. And I think they might need to do that a little more, throughout the rest of the season, and not be quite so reliant on Josh Jacobs in this run game, because there's still just going to be ongoing questions until they can consistently show that they can move people up front. It's going to be on Love to make a lot of big plays, and how he goes could very well determine how far the Packers end up going this season.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that level of confidence that the Packers need to have should be with Jordan Love. You're absolutely right. I mean, he has shown that he can be that type of confidence that any team in the NFL, could have when he is under center. And you said something earlier that I thought was really interesting, that the number 1 seed in the NFC, when it's all said and done this season, may be coming, and likely coming, from the NFC North. And it really is such a crazy division at this point. It's fun to watch from an outsider perspective, week in and week out. Packers, of course, the Lions and the Bears, they all have winning records at this point. Vikings are 3-4, certainly not out of, possible playoff contention at this point. We'll have to wait and see, of course. But I'm just wondering, which team do you think is the biggest threat to the Packers in the division for the rest of the season, and why? I would guess it would probably be the Lions, from what you're thinking, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I think at this point you're looking at Minnesota really starting to tail off here, as we get into midseason. Carson Wentz being out for the year now. I have it on pretty good authority that they're not crazy about JJ McCarthy in Minnesota. And
And I
he
wasn't
had that
crazy on
one.
JJ McCarthy coming out.
I'm with you.
I mean,
I'm right there with
when he
you.
came out of Michigan, I mean, I saw him how many years at Michigan, and I was like, man, I don't know how this is going to translate to the NFL here.
And honestly, aside from, 10 minutes at the end of that week 1 game against Chicago, he hasn't
Yeah.
really done anything when he has been out there
Yeah.
so far this season. So I don't expect Minnesota to be really in contention down the stretch. And with Chicago, I mean, Caleb Williams looks better than he did last year, but he still hasn't taken that big step forward that I think a lot of people were expecting out of him with Ben Johnson as the head coach coming over from Detroit.
Yeah. He still has
He's
inconsistencies for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw some of it with the late game situation against Baltimore on Sunday. Just not really being able to kind of control the clock and understand, the situation there with
Yep.
a couple of those plays down the stretch. And I mean, you look at Drake May in New England, like that's what you would love to
Yeah.
see out of a second year quarterback taking that huge step forward. And Caleb hasn't done that. So Packers have 2 games against Chicago in the span of 3 weeks in December. I expect the Packers to play well in both of those games, and I don't see I see the Bears probably being around a 500 team, but I don't see them being much better than that, and I'd be surprised if they're really in contention. I mean, this really
Yeah.
feels like a 2-team race between Green Bay and Detroit. Again, Detroit's just such a complete team. I mean, again, you can nitpick on a few things, but they're not perfect, but the balance that they can have on offense when everything is clicking is something that's really tough for any other team to match. And
Yes.
so, yeah, it's going to be a fun one on Thanksgiving yet again between Green Bay and Detroit. And I'm just really glad the Packers got that first week 1 win over the Lions out of the way.
Yeah.
And they've only got to deal with them once down the stretch instead of having a pair of games to deal with in the second half against those Lions.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Again, folks, we're talking to Evan Tex Western from acmepackingcompany.com. Head on over to acmepackingcompany.com. Got a lot of great content, not only with regard to the Packers, but just the NFL in general. Where can they find you on the socials out there? And if they want to connect with you?
Excuse me. Yeah. You can get, I'm active on Blue Sky at Tex Western. You can get us at Acme Packing Co. I also do the Frozen Tundra Frequencies podcast feed. So I usually do the Packers game recaps. So we got a couple different podcasts in that feed as well. That's available on all of the socials. Again, at Frozen Tundra Pod on Blue Sky. We're active over there as well. So yeah, check us out. And then obviously acmepackingcompany.com.
Yeah, very good. And if you are watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe. You can also hit that bell to be to be notified when we post new videos. Again, like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not on YouTube, head on over there, search out the Philadelphia Sports Table. We're also on various social media sites. We are on the Twitter/X. I'm over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. Also Instagram. Just search us out. I'm over on Blue Sky. Jeff Warren, you can search me out there. We're on Threads as well. We've got more NFC talk coming your way after our break right here. Stick with us. All right, we are back with our good friend Tex Western from acmepackingcompany.com. And as we are moving along with our Opposition Territory podcast and discussion this week, I really am finding, Tex, that the jockeying of positions between the Rams and the 49ers and the Seahawks in the NFC West it's going to continue to be interesting to follow. I think all 3 teams, pretty good teams, and given the injuries again that the 49ers have been going through this season, it seems to just be an ongoing theme year after year for them. Injury after injury after injury, yet they still remain relevant in that division. But both the Rams and the Seahawks are 5-2 as of us recording this. Niners are 5-3. How do you see this battle between these 3 teams really taking shape for the rest of the season here?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if the Rams can pull away in the next month or so.
Yeah.
I think the Rams are the best team out of the 3 by a fair margin. I'm not sold on the Sam Darnold, the efficiency that he's putting up in Seattle. And at some
great.
point,
I just was getting him off waivers on my freaking fantasy team. Great. Thanks a lot, Tex.
Well, but the thing is, if they start to run into really good defenses, I think it feels like Jackson Smith and Jigba is just about, the deep balls to him are about their entire offense.
That's what they have. That's all they
exactly.
have.
And I think you get to run into some better defenses, and they're going to start taking that away and forcing you to beat them in other ways. Now they have a pretty easy schedule coming down the stretch, right? They looking at the Seahawks schedule. They've got Washington. They've got a couple games against I think Arizona and San Francisco, Atlanta, Tennessee, Minnesota, who we talked about already. So I mean, there's some winnable games in there for sure, and I think that might actually kind of keep them neck and neck with the Rams coming down the stretch. Late in the season. Again, I think the Rams are the better team, but they're playing more of a first place schedule, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for them. But I'm with the 49ers, like you said, the injuries are just so devastating. Fred Warner is such a huge factor in that defense. And I just don't know how you overcome a loss of maybe the best linebacker in football. And continue to maintain that level of production on defense.
I'd say second best. Zach Bond. I find him to be number
Fair
one.
enough. Wisconsin guy. I'm willing to have that conversation.
There you go. Right. Well, look, moving along. Look, as I was putting, our topics together that we're going to be getting into here, and I'm thinking to myself, there's one team that we have not talked about in the NFC for years and years and years. And that's the Carolina Panthers. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna dive into them and see what Tex is thinking about when it comes to this Panthers team. Yes, they're 4-4. They're only 500 here. Wouldn't necessarily call them a special team, but the fact that they are 500, they're starting to get some momentum, and they aren't, in the basement anymore. And I find that to be interesting, quite frankly. I use a phrase on this podcast platform a lot. You can't fall out of a basement window, and they just couldn't fall out of that basement window anymore. It's interesting what's happening in Carolina, I think, based on the fact that they're not horrendous as they have been now for quite some time. How are you viewing the Panthers, this team overall, as we're halfway through the season here?
Well, I mean, it's great timing because the Packers are playing Carolina this coming week. And I spent a little bit of time watching their game this last week against the Bills, and it's certainly clear to me that without Bryce Young, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
Andy Dalton is, he is a acceptable veteran backup. Acceptable is being generous, I think, at this point. So, I mean, so much of their success that they've had this year is centered around the run game, and that's great, but you also need to use the run to set up explosive plays in the passing game, and that's the part that has been missing. So even though they've got one of the most efficient run games in the NFL, I look at EPA a lot, and by EPA per play, they're like 5th in the NFL in rushing.
That's what's incredible here, right?
It is. It is. But then they're 5th worst in the NFL in passing EPA per play.
Right.
And when you look at the relative efficiencies of those, I mean, that they're still like a bottom 10 offense overall. So, I mean, that's a struggle. And even through, this 4-4 stretch, they've scored 13 or fewer points in half of their games. So there's a lot of just general kind of issues there. Now, wins against, I think you look at their schedule too, right? The teams that they've beat: Atlanta, which, Miami, Dallas, just about everybody's putting 30, 40 points up on Dallas. And then, they beat the Jets by scoring 13 points in a 13-6 win. So I think Tampa's going to run away with that division, even with the injuries. And I mean, looking ahead to this Sunday, it's still an open question whether or not Bryce Young is going to play. If he doesn't, I mean, Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary are probably going to have a field day with Andy Dalton.
Yes.
So it's going to, I'm hoping
Dalton might be retired. He might be retired after this game. Yes.
Yeah. And I know last time we had talked, I kind of mentioned the rookie receiver kind of storyline throughout the NFL. And I mean, Ted McMillan is looking like a really nice player for them. And I think he's going to be a really solid receiver in the NFL for a long time. It's just they need to find other ways of getting the passing game moving. And right now, he's about all they've got. And
Right.
they're going to need to develop some additional weapons in the passing game. Otherwise, they're kind of going to be stuck in this, around 500
Right.
phase, I think, for a little while.
They're not the New York Jets, and they're certainly not the Miami Dolphins at this point. Again, 4-4. They pulled out some wins. Again, you can't fall out of a basement window. I think the Panthers are just interesting to follow in general.
Yeah, and looking at their schedule, I mean, it's pretty brutal down the stretch. You got Packers, you got games against the Packers, the 49ers, the Rams, 2 games against the Bucks and the Seahawks. So almost that entire NFC West. Packers game and then a couple of games against the Bucks at the end. It's going to be a rough go, I think, for them over the second half, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, to close us out, buddy, and I appreciated you taking the time, but we certainly have to move over to the Philadelphia Eagles. We are a Philly sports podcast, and the Eagles, obviously, I think clear favorites at this point in terms of the NFC East division. We've seen that regression from Washington, and yes, Jaden Daniels been injured, but they're not playing great football by any stretch. The Cowboys defense is horrendous, as we know. You even mentioned it. It's like nothing to put up, 26, 30 points against the Cowboys defense at this point. And yes, while the Eagles have certainly struggled to pull out wins at times over the first 6-7 weeks, offensive line struggles, a ton of injuries up front, some shuffling around, the depth not really being there. This past week was really the first time we saw offensive cohesiveness coming together, really. How are you viewing this Philadelphia Eagles team as a potential top contender in the NFC moving forward here?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that this is another one of those teams that sort of looks okay for the first half of the season and then starts to put it all together for a run in the second half. And you mentioned it this last week with the offense looking much better, the running game finally figuring itself out after was it 5 weeks in a row of less than 100 yards on the ground.
Just incredible.
Yeah. And obviously, Saquon Barkley's injury, I'm assuming as a Packers fan whose team is going to play the Eagles coming off a bye, I'm sure he'll be full go a week from Monday when those two teams play each other. So he'll be back and I'm sure he'll be fine and we'll put our run defense to the test. But based on where everything is at in that NFC East, I think it's going to be a comfortable division win for Philly. And then, like you said, it's sort of it's putting all those pieces together and getting that getting the offensive line moving and moving the line of scrimmage, right? That's what they've been so good at for years. I think that's that game on Sunday was a good sign that they're headed in the right direction. So it's an interesting schedule too, right? Right after the Packers, they play the Lions at home, which will be a tough one. They've got the Bills late in the season. So, I mean, there's certainly going to be some good tests for them. So there's no question that, once they get to January, I think they will have been battle tested. And, but again, I mean, that 2-week stretch against Green Bay and Detroit, I mean, is going to be big for their chances, I think, of potentially competing for a top seed in the NFC.
Absolutely.
And trying to avoid playing on wildcard weekend. So
I actually
I'm going to be watching both of those games closely.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my season prediction for the NFC Championship game, and it really wasn't from a homer type of standpoint. I mean, they are the defending Super Bowl champions. We didn't expect that it was going to be like this with the offensive line. Again, given how dominant they've been over the years and generally having the majority of those guys there. I have the Packers and Eagles in the NFC Championship game. I really do, because these are two teams I think that have amazing quarterbacks who are doing really good things. Jalen Hurts isn't necessarily putting up the air yards, but his leadership and the poise that he has, we're seeing it with Jordan Love as well. You talked about how Matt LaFleur was basically like, okay, we got to unleash him at this point. The rushing game is not working this past week. We got to put it in Jordan Love's hands and let him, give this team an offense the confidence that it needs. Eagles needed to do that with Jalen Hurts every now and again as well. I think that would be an incredible NFC Championship matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, that's two of those 4 teams that I said at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
That I think are among the best teams in the NFC. And it'd be a fun matchup. And if it ends up being a preview of the NFC Championship game on Monday night in a couple of weeks, I can live with that.
Absolutely. Again, folks, he is Tex Western, acmepackingcompany.com. And he's over on Blue Sky. Search him out over there. He's a great follow. Knows his stuff for sure. My friend, it was great talking to you. And look, I may have to have you on next week so we can do the preview show again. I know I'm putting you on the spot here as we're recording here, but geez.
If you insist, we'll make it happen. Let's do it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you coming on, and we will definitely talk soon.
Let's do it. Go Pack, go.